Hey all, and welcome back to some DevDude. Today we're going to be taking on our first lab, which is a SQL injection lab from the Portsmouth Academy. There is a couple of prerequisites. The first one is my first video on SQL injection, kind of breaking down what databases are, a SQL database, SQL queries, and then what SQL injection is. And the second one is getting set up with Portswigger. And you can also, if you want to follow along with me, you can spin up the third video of creating a virtual machine with Kali Linux. So I'm here on the Academy's SQL injection page, URL right there for you. I'll also leave the URL in the description below. And here we have just Portswigger's write-up of what SQL injection is. They've got a video here. I'm not going to go through that. We're just going to jump straight into the first lab. So I'm going to scroll down here. And I'm going to just open up this one here. So SQL injection vulnerability in where clause allowing retrieval of hidden data. So the first thing you want to do whenever you open up these labs is you want to read the description. So this description kind of gives you an overview of what you'll be doing, as well as any, I guess, limitations or gives you clues to where you should be looking. So reading the description, this lab contains a SQL injection vulnerability in the product category filter. When the user selects a category, the application carries out a SQL query like the following. So going back to my first video, we'll break down this query. So select star. So we know select is specifying the type of query. In this case, we are retrieving data from a database table. And star is all, so it gets all of the fields on that database table. From products, so from being the database the database table we are pulling information from. And then we have a where with two where clauses. So these are the conditions of the data that we want to fetch. So where category equals gifts and release equals 1. To solve the lab, perform a SQL injection attack that causes the application to display details of all products in any category, both released and unreleased. So before we jump in, let's just have a look at this query so we can get a little bit of clues about the structure of the table. We know that the table is called products, and we know they've got at least two columns of categories, which will be a string, and release will be a integer. So we're going to click access the lab. And the way I like to do this is I like to open the link in the new tab. What will happen is Portswigger will spin up a website for you to attack. So it's your own little customized website. You can see you have a unique hash there that will be different from lab to lab. And yeah, so I'm just going to quickly go back and point out a couple of things. We have the solution down here. So if you're having any troubles with labs, you can use this one. I've used it before to kind of point me in the right direction, mainly when I was trying to change my mindset about how to approach from software engineer to penetration tester. And then we have community solutions. People will just find their way to crack through this and solve the lab and then upload them. Hopefully one day I'll be there. Okay, so let's go over to the lab. Now, there's a couple ways we can solve this, but first thing we're going to do is we're going to look through the website. With the Portswigger labs, they'll always have this header with the title of the lab and whether you've solved it or not, and a link back to the description. Again, if you open the new tab, you can quickly switch back and forth. So we have We Like to Shop, and just a random assortment of random items. The guys at Portswigger have a bit of a sense of humor, which you'll see in the future episodes with labs. And we'll go through here, and some of the things that stand out are you have the search category or category filter, which we'll get to in a second. And then you might be able to view details. But we know from looking at the description, we're looking for when we're showing multiple products, because we're not specifying a specific product or an ID, we're specifying a category. So let's have a look at these categories. So we have accessories. Let's see what happens. So you can see we've been redirected to a new page, and we can see that we have the URL change with the category there. Now, This one doesn't particularly require Burp Suite, but I will show you a couple ways to solve this. The way I did this, because I never really got exposed to Burp Suite when I first started approaching the labs, is I actually mucked around in the URL. So going back to the description, we want to perform a SQL injection attack that causes the application to display details of all products in any category, both release and unreleased. So how can we do that? So if we were trying to attack this just by using the URL, what we want to be doing is we want to be closing out or removing the rest of that statement. So that in this case, we're going to remove all of this. And the way we do that is we need to enter a quote, because that will close out the string here. And then we can go plus all, and this is just putting this in the URL encoding. Then plus 1 equals 1 dash dash. Now let's hit enter. And we can see we've solved the lab because we are getting a bunch more different results. So that's how I'd do it if I was just attacking the URL, but this is Portswigger. They have a really nice tool that allows us to do a lot more. So I'm just going to close that, go back to accessories, and let's choose a different category. So I'm going to go to lifestyle. So we're going to open up Burp Suite. If you have Kali Linux, go up Burp Suite by clicking the menu button. Just type in Burp Suite up the top here. Helps if I can spell. And click on Burp Suite. This is the community edition that comes with every Kali Linux install. You might get this area here. I'm just going to click OK. It's basically just your Java runtime. I will probably make another video to update that just to make things nicer in the future. Terms and conditions about Burp Suite. Have a read. I've already accepted them before. You get your temporary project. There is an update available. I will go through again how to update and get rid of all these pop-ups in another video. I'm going to close that for now. I'm going to click next. And start Burp. So, welcome to Burp Suite. The one thing we're going to quickly do right now is dark mode. Much better. Okay, so Burp Suite comes with a lot of options. I will make another video in the near future going through and breaking them out and explaining what to do. The one we're interested in today is called Proxy. So what Proxy allows us to do is you can open a new browser that records every HTTP request and then logs that, and then also saves it in memory so we can actually replay it later. So I'm just going to click on Open Browser. And I'm going to grab just the first bit of the URL here. And I'm just going to hit enter and open up that one. And you see, again, we've already solved the lab, but we're going to explore it more. So let's look at tech GIFs. This is a category. I can go through here. And again, it's the same as before, except because we're using Burp Suite, I'm going to minimize that one. And we're using Proxy, so we're using the Chromium web browser. Chromium's just an open source web browser that Google Chrome and a lot of other browsers are based off of. We can go to HTTP history. I'm just going to put the default password in there. Again, one of the few things that pops up. And you can see through here the requests that we've got. Let's have a look at this one, filter. Actually, let's start from the top. Here we have the get to the home page. You can see the HTTP requests. We are saying we want to get requests, so we're retrieving information from slash. So that would specify we access in the home page or the root directory of the website. And we have the host here. We also have the HTTP version. Again, let's not worry about that today. I'll break that out in a further video. And a few other options here. If we look over this side, I'm just going to make this bigger for a second. We can see this is HTML. So you got the request response details. You can see that they're setting a cookie, which will be stored and tracked across sessions. And the content length saying how much information there is. What we can do is we can click on render. And you can see that we're actually rendering a website. So that HTML that you just saw here, so all of this, is actually the website. But we're interested in exploiting a SQL injection, so we're going to go back to filter again. I click on this one, so this is the filter category tech GIFs. And what Burp Suite allows us to do is we can either intercept, so intercept would, when we turn this on, it would stop every request before it either is sent off or received back to the browser, allowing you to modify it and inspect it. But today we're just going to use Repeater. Repeater allows us to take a request and then we can modify it and keep sending that request with the modifications and keep mucking around. So I'm going to send that to Repeater, switch over to the Repeater tab. Just going to swing this over. And we can see the request is this time we're getting the /filter and then getting a category. Again, we're going to use the same SQL injection command. So comma plus or plus 1 equals 1 dash dash send. And you can't really see it here unless you know how to read HTML. I'm going to click on render. And what we'll do is we'll compare that. Oh, there we go. Compare that. So we have Hexbug, Battleground, Tarantulas, Inflatable Holiday Home, I should say. And compare that to the regular tech GIFs. You can see there's a massive difference. There's a lot more products. So now that we've run the exploit and we've broken in and we've got the data that we wanted that wasn't meant to be seen by us, let's break it out and see what's actually happening under the hood. So we have the expected query that we saw on the lab description page. So select all from product where category equals GIFs and release equals 1. And in this case, the main parameter that we're changing, or the only parameter that we can change, is GIFs, or the category. So if we take that URL or the HTTP request and replace what's meant to happen, where the front end sends one of an expected finite amount of categories, so we had GIFs, we have tech GIFs, accessories, we take that and replace their category that they're expecting with our own input. So in this case, we're typing in GIFs, apostrophe, or 1 equals 1, dash dash. The semicolon's not required. I've put it in there because it's the habit of writing SQL queries, but we can leave that out. So let's break this down. So GIFs is the category, and we're using the apostrophe to close out the string. And then after that, we are outside of the expected input, so we can start manipulating the SQL query with whatever we want. In this case, we're adding or 1 equals 1, so that if there is 2 categories or 2 where clauses that we care about, and only one of them has to be true, it will return every piece of information in the table. So that's the way SQL works. It's basically comparing each row with the where clauses and then returns if everything is true. In this case, the category of GIFs, if the row has the category of GIFs, it will return that information because the SQL query's where clause of category equals GIFs is true. But since we are adding or 1 equals 1, and because it's an or statement, so one or the other must be true, therefore it will return all information because for every row when it compares 1 equals 1 is true, regardless of what the information in the row is. And remembering that we're adding the dash dash because that is the comma, so it will ignore the rest of the query. So the actual query that's executed is select all from products where category equals, and in red we have the users or our input. In this case with GIFs, we're closing with that apostrophe and then adding the second condition of the where clause of 1 equals 1 and or 1 equals 1. Followed by the 2 dashes, which is the comment, so what's in blue will be ignored because the database will think that's a comment and therefore should not be executed. And that is what's happening under the hood. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something today. If you have any comments or queries, please chuck them down below in the comments section, and I'll see you for the next video.